The Vancouver Voodoo is the best logo in the history. It has art, it is edgy, it is conversational.
It's probably the #1 replica jersey that's
coming up across the line. Him changing his reputation, I guess. Let's go! Oh, quick flag.
Now, when you talk about Vancouver, I know we talked about last time, Ryan Harrison is, probably the big name out of Vancouver. I mean, historically, you're looking at numbers and longevity with the teams. It's got to be Ryan.
Keith was with the St. Louis Blues when the franchise was born.
probably the coolest story that a lot of people don't know is they were the backdrop for the opening of Happy Gilmore.
I did not even know that story, Adam.
Oh,
That's why we have you on. That's awesome. Vipers probably had the most comprehensive local licensing program in the league. Roller hockey vibe. We are not ice hockey. We are our own people, and that's what the Vipers do.
one of the first teams to, bring some true roller hockey guys, CJ and Jamie Yoder. So to see them get on board in 96 and 97, eventually win the cup in 99. CJ now, well into his 40s, is still playing, and people still call him the greatest roller hockey player of all time.
Our first foot forward was in Japan.
Get off the bench.
Welcome back to another episode of the Off the Bench Puckcast, proudly presented by Bench Clears. We're thrilled to once again welcome two of the biggest names in the jersey collecting world, Vince Omundson and Adam Stio. Today we're diving deeper into the colorful and wild world of Roller Hockey International, from team logos and jersey designs to the rich history and untold stories behind each franchise. We got plenty of nostalgia and surprises lined up. Let's drop the puck. Vince and Adam, welcome back to the show.
Hey, boys, good to see you.
Yeah. Happy to have you. So today, I think, we'll dive into some more of the team design specifically. We want to hear some of the stories that pertain to those teams, how some of these designs came to be, kind of the wild design, something like this that maybe changed the game a little bit. Let's get right into it. So why don't we start with the Vancouver Voodoo? This one is, you see it all over the internet. If you type in RHI, Vancouver Voodoo comes up first. They had the Voodoo Girls, right? They had player cards. They had the crazy, big Voodoo head mascot skating around. It looked like a pretty wild team. I wish we got to go to one of those games.
Joe, I'm going to throw the hammer down on this one, okay? The Vancouver Voodoo, and you can quote me, and I will die on this hill. The Vancouver Voodoo is the best logo in the history of professional sports. Barmel, period, end of story, podcast over.
And end show. Boop. Yeah, we're done. Oh, yeah. I mean, it is tough to beat. I mean, I think Whalers immediately, but a logo like this.
It has alliteration. It has art. It is edgy. It is conversational. It is graphic. It's color rich. What else do you need? This is perfection right there on a jersey.
It's really incredible. Incredible. Got your little.
And it killed on the vibe. It was vibe.
Oh, yeah. This thing is amazing. Amazing. See the players skate around in this. And I know you have some stories that we definitely want to hear, and we want to hear now. But, where did these guys play up in Vancouver?
Well, they started in the P&E Agrodome, which was on the same grounds, if you will, as the Coliseum. It was, I think it was 4,500, 5,500 seats. Perfect little building. It was beautiful. A lot of fun, a lot of atmosphere. Game presented perfectly in that building, just with that much atmosphere. Tiger Williams could be heard in the back row. It was a great building, and I think really fed into the fire of this team catching in Vancouver. It was perfect. It did make, for the team to have to move to the Coliseum. What, Adam?
They just jumped in attendance year to year. It was just amazing. Everybody took to it, and like you said, I think the main reason was it was not only something different, but it was the logo and the whole color scheme and everything that everybody completely got behind. They were the number one merch seller in RHI, by far. So, I mean, everywhere you look and everywhere you look for RHI right now, it's probably the number one replica jersey that still shows up on the market. We're talking 30 years later. And you always see 2, 3, 4 of them all over the place. They were one of the first to sublimate things. They were, I mean, they just had so many cool things. They did so many different designs. They basically redesigned their jersey every year. They went with different colors. They went, they tried so many crazy things. And then I think probably the coolest story that a lot of people don't know is they were the backdrop for the opening of Happy Gilmore. So I don't know if you remember the beginning of Happy Gilmore where they talked about going to see his favorite Boston Bruin. They were actually filming in British Columbia. So when they did the original Happy Gilmore, they were looking for hockey background. There was no hockey background live. So they actually went to a Vancouver Voodoo game playing against the Oakland Skate. I can't remember, I believe it was 95 or 96, but that was the backdrop of the opening scene in Happy Gilmore was the Voodoo against the Oakland Skates at the big building there in Vancouver.
I did not even know that story, Adam.
Oh,
That's why we have you on, and that's awesome.
I picked up on that the very first time I saw Happy Gilmore. I was like, wait a minute, that's Vancouver. That's not ice hockey.
yep.
That is awesome.
Yeah, there's an
Still in the first All-Star game, too.
That's right. Well, we'll talk about that in a second, but
Yeah.
there's another cool story about the Voodoo logo. If you guys remember that the Vancouver Grizzlies were an expansion basketball team in the NBA the year after RHI was introduced and the Voodoo was introduced. There were checks with a lot of zeros being thrown at Voodoo ownership by the NBA and by Grizzlies ownership to sell the logo to become an NBA team. There were just a lot of zeros. But true to the RHI optimism that we all still have, right? They held onto the logo because they thought, like we all did, that RHI was going to be around and maybe even outlast the NBA. So, sorry they didn't cash out, but glad we still held on to it and glad that we still have these stories to tell. But, that was a sign to me 30 years ago when we were at the league office and you've got the NBA calling and you've got the commissioner and you've got the ownership and they're all pleading and begging and then they throw lawyers at us. I mean, it was quite a chapter. It was really a cool time to be at the league office and to see all of this in circulation. But yeah, the Voodoo ownership held firm.
Good for them. I'll tell you what, with the PWHL expanding to Vancouver, I was talking to somebody on a chat board somewhere, and I thought it would be wild to see the women's team, you take that name, as the Vancouver Voodoo Dolls.
Ooh.
I don't know how many women would, get upset about the feminist thing, but I just thought Voodoo Dolls would go great in the city of Vancouver to kind of piggyback off of this team in the 90s with Shane Cross.
Vince.
Look, sometimes I have my moments, okay? I thought, piggybacking off the history of that in the city of Vancouver and using that same name, but, with a play on the females team would be a great merchandise for them as well.
Well, if they don't pick it up, I know somebody who might. So there we go.
Yeah. No, all right. That is awesome. Yeah, do you know who made this beautiful, beautiful logo?
Well,
the illustrator?
Interesting story because CCM could not really replicate that logo with a crest. It was extraordinarily exciting to embroider, and it was awful big. It was awful heavy. We did actually do a couple of samples, but it pulled the jersey. And if you can imagine being in the face-off circle and your jersey is sticking, 6 inches from your chest, getting in the way of, trying to win a face-off, it just didn't work. But it was a perfect use case for sublimation. And if you guys remember, around that 92, 93 area, sublimation was just being introduced. I'm pretty sure RHI was the very first professional league to introduce sublimated uniforms, period. So they were a perfect use case. They were manufactured by a company called Sugoi in the Pacific Northwest. I believe they might even be in Vancouver. And the Voodoo had a long-lasting relationship with Sugoi, which, if I'm being honest, was in competition and caused a lot of problems with CCM. And I think ultimately CCM and Segoy developed a manufacturing relationship with each other. But yeah, I can't fault the Voodoo for being innovative and for pushing that edge. But yeah, it was the cause for some conversation.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I wish I got to go to one or more than one of these games over here. They looked like they said they did have some of the highest attendance. This game's just looked like
Significantly.
Next to Anaheim, yep.
Yeah.
Voodoo experience.
If I'm off the top of my head, I'd say over the course of their franchise history, Voodoo probably averaged between 55 and 6 every game, with peaks over 10 when they made it to the Coliseum.
Wow.
Yeah.
11,000 for the All-Star game.
Well, actually, in the All-Star game, we were probably closer to 16,000.
Oh, was it that way? Okay.
Yeah, we had a great relationship with McDonald's, and we actually kind of lost track of the number of tickets that were redeemed from the McDonald's tray liners. I think that's why we were closer to 16,000 for that All-Star game. It's unbelievable. It was packed. I mean, if you go back to the footage on ESPN or on YouTube, there wasn't a seat in the house, especially in the lower bowl. It was beautiful. Energy was magnificent in that building for that game. If we talk about the All-Star jerseys sometime, I'll tell you another great story about that game too. Go ahead, Vince. Sorry.
You see those Hyde and Adam, yeah?
I remember Vancouver history. Mike Kennedy, who I believe won a Stanley Cup with the Dallas Stars, scored the first goal in Vancouver Voodoo history before moving on to the NHL. I've actually kind of spoken to him a few times about trying to get one of those jerseys. So we play a lot of tag, and so I bug him a lot. But that'd be a big, cool name and a jersey to have in the collection.
Well, do you guys remember the biggest name out of Voodoo history? I know you're going to probably lean in one direction, but RHI hung our hat promotionally on Joe Charbonneau for that first season. Do you guys remember that?
Yep.
Yeah, but didn't pan out in the NHL, unfortunately. One of those draft pick busts, but I think he kind of lost his passion for the game after that. And while he was a big name for the Voodoo, I don't ever remember him making a big statistical impact in the game. Do you guys remember differently?
No, unfortunately, you didn't.
Now, when you talk about Vancouver, I know we talked about last time. It's Ryan Harrison is probably the big name out of Vancouver. I mean, they have some other names, but historically, you're looking at numbers and longevity with the teams. It's got to be Ryan.
Okay, I'm going to contradict myself. I am a moron. And yeah, my wife can confirm. Charbonneau in the first season, 14 games, 25 goals, 43 assists, 68 points for 10 PIMs, plus 26. Okay.
Not shabby.
Yes, Joe.
They're pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad. Okay.
And they did not have a Murphy Cup under their belt, did they?
Never made it.
Didn't get close.
Really? Huh. Was the team pretty good? Just couldn't get it done in the playoffs? Or really?
Yeah,
Huh.
they couldn't beat teams in the playoffs. That was their biggest issue.
Well, were they now in the same division, same conference, I guess, right? As the Anaheim Bullfrogs?
Pacific Conference. Yeah, the Western.
Yeah. So they got to get through them, right? And they were always kind of there. So who would you say their biggest rival was? Did you see rivals really come together in this league? In the, short-lived version of it?
Geographically, Portland was their rival. I think you could also probably throw Calgary into the mix from the Canadian rivalry side. But, I'd say Vancouver was sort of an island. No pun intended, but they just were kind of their own island of excellence up there, and that radiated out that their geographical rivals tried to match, but never really got there.
Yeah, unfortunately for rivals, unfortunately, Edmonton, Calgary, Portland. I mean, these teams just weren't around long enough to really establish that rivalry. Yeah, Portland was there, 93, 94. Edmonton, only 94. Calgary, I think 93, 94. And then, Vancouver is there through, I think, 97, if I recall.
90.
Long term.
Yeah, so unfortunately, geographically for them, there was nobody close enough to really build that rivalry. Like, biggest one I think I remember was obviously Anaheim and LA. When you talk about rivalries, so Yes, sad for Vancouver. They didn't have anybody to kind of hate.
Yeah, always makes the game more exciting, but yeah.
Yeah, but I'll defend and I'll die on the hill though that best logo in sports history.
We heard it here. I know there are a lot of good ones.
Any discussion on that? Adam, you've got one of those grins going. What's up? What do
Well,
think?
I mean, I've been around minor league hockey for a long time, and I always love, taking a gander at minor league baseball because you get these, all these weird, different kinds of names and stuff like that. And I'm never, how would you say it? Like, I'm never like, oh, everyone says this person's the greatest player, this person's the greatest. This. And I always try and get like a top 5 or a top 6. And if I had to go with sports logos, easily in my top 5, just simply because it has everything a logo should. If you just put that on the jersey as a giant V like they did in 94, and then you look at, I'm sorry, 93, and then what you look at what they did in 94, it was just, I mean, everybody got behind the logo. I mean, there's V's in the V. That face with the V's in the crown. I mean, it was just, they were all about Vancouver Voodoo, and I think the color scheme that they picked, the purple, the orange, I mean, and like I said, I don't want to call them like innovations, but I mean, the stuff that they did with their uniforms, and unfortunately some of the rules that they broke, not going with Bauer or CPM for a couple of years. But I mean, either way, like I said, it is still that one jersey that you see everywhere. It's 30 years down the road, and it's one of it just has that lasting impression. And definitely, I would say my top 3, 100%.
All right,
Well,
the final reveal. Go ahead. Sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
So this is still one of the hardest jerseys to find if you're looking for
Gamers, yeah.
for as long as they were around. Finding a gamer is damn near impossible. But like you said, I mean, the replicas are left and right on eBay. But yeah, they are tough. Either people just don't want to let them go, or they just don't know they have one. They are tough to find.
Yeah, and they're also one of those jerseys that for years you couldn't figure out what year was what. Even if you look at their 94 year, when they brought back players that they had in 93, they still had jerseys that they recycled over. So they had Segoy on top of Segoy with 2 different color collars. Some of the trims were a little bit different. The patching, where the actual Segoy name was on the front or whether it was on the back. And then in 95, they 100% all of their jerseys were done by CCM. They all had the Taco Bell logo, and they conformed in 95. And then in 96, they were one of those teams that, they got their Reebok jerseys and they detested them because they were just, the colors were way too big, and people didn't like them. They had a bunch of jerseys made up, maybe about half the team. And then most of the guys just said, these just don't work. They go back to Segoy. They went with an orange collar instead of the purple. And it was trying to figure out where these jerseys were and what year they were for a long time was kind of crazy. A collector that's now in Tennessee, who was originally from Long Island, Matt Matarotondo, a good buddy of Vince and mine, is, Matt's been a long time collector since the 90s like me. And he was the one that kind of figured out, well, hey, the collar on this one's different. I was like, I was kind of blown away, but he was the one that figured it out. And this was a few years ago. But yeah, so now we know exactly which jersey is from which year. And like I said, some of the 93 did get recycled over to 94, but you can see the obvious differences. So it was always fun working with Vancouver and trying to see, how they did and what they did, but everything they did was magical.
True that. And yeah, Matt's a good dude. All right. Little reveal. I don't know if I've shown this to either of you. So here we go. There are 4 of these on the planet. I'm going to have to take my filter off. I can't do it. But this is a Letterman's jacket that was given to us by those of us who produced the All-Star game in 94.
He hit me with that a couple months ago. Oh, this is so wrong.
I did tell you how. I'm sorry, Adam. But all right, so this is all loop embroidered. This is the back of the jacket. Come on, camera. Work with me.
Sad, beautiful.
Nice. This is like a Letterman's jacket with leather on the sleeve. dirty mug where we're stitched in the embroider or in the leather.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry I've got this filter on, but you guys should see this sometime. But as far as I know, there are 4 of those, and I am the only non-owner of the club to have one. So the bidding will start. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, this is one of the things that I would reach for if the house was on fire.
That's amazing. Yeah. What year was that from?
Last 94. That were presented to the owners at the halftime, if I remember, of the All-Star game, in a little private ceremony. And then after the game, they had one for me. I had spent a month off. Yeah, right. I will. I cash credit cards. No, I spent a month living with Mike King, who was the general manager of the Voodoo, and helped basically be the league representative, and it was a blast. I mean, what a great thing to be in Vancouver in the summer and promoting the All-Star game and to catch the vibe and the energy of everything the Voodoo had going on. They owned that town in the summer of 94.
Oh, yeah.
It was unbelievable. And so it was just an honor to be there, and just what a treat, what an experience to have produced the game.
Well, you got to remember too, summer '94, they're riding the coattails of a Stanley Cup final where they lose to the Rangers in 7 games, and now they've got more hockey to watch in the summertime instead of that lull of now we got to wait till we get back. I think for them, '94 was a good year. It filled that void of heartbreak for that city, and having more something exciting to watch again instead of waiting a whole summer for ice hockey season to come back.
And you really couldn't have gotten a better coach and a better personality than Tiger Book. Perfect. Perfect. What a spokesperson for the team.
Yeah, that team definitely knew what they were doing. So
Yeah, for sure. What an honor. But awesome. Yeah, no, it's good times, and I think there's a reason why we still talk about them like this 30 years later. It was a great organization, great people, arguably the best logo in sports history, and a really successful team in a beautiful, beautiful city. So what a perfect recipe for success.
Yeah. There you go. Were they around for every year of RHI?
No, I thought they missed the final 2 or 3 seasons, didn't they, guys?
They were absent in 97 and 99, correct?
Yeah, that's it.
I think sadly, well, for their ownership, they kind of saw the downfall coming, and I think probably got out at the right time. Sadly for the rest of us, they didn't make it a few more years, but I think from a business and a financial standpoint, they saw the troubles coming and said, yeah, that's not going to work much longer. And sadly, they were right.
All right. Well, Voodoo, we love you. You got one of the best logos in sports. So thanks for that. But let's move on to a team that does have a Murphy Cup. Not one I don't think Steve is gonna like very much, because didn't they beat your Bullfrog in the last season?
What do you mean? This is my team.
Yeah, I know we know you're from St. Louis, but
These are my boys.
the Vipers. But did they in the final season? They won the last season Murphy Cup, right?
Yeah, the best damn time too, because they had a good team throughout the entire league history. Not the
Was that against the Bullfrogs?
I don't remember, but think it was. But really, the Vipers were my hometown team. And the Bullfrogs were my second hometown.
So the important question is, who from that organization has the Murphy Cup?
Great question. And I'm going to tell you, it's probably a guy named Dale Turvey, who was the owner at the time. I'll bet he has that in his basement somewhere.
Megan, Adam.
Would you like me to make an intro to you or for you?
Just saying, that'd be a cool piece to own. It might outdo everything Adam has.
Oh, wow. We part in RHI Hall of Fame. I know where I'm turning first. Yes. Yeah, no, I'll bet you Dale has it. He took over
Murphy Cup.
He took over ownership somewhere after 95, I believe. Keith Blaze and Mike Schroeder were the principals, along with Bernie Federko for the foundational years of the Vipers. Keith, probably one of the most decorated and experienced individuals in USA hockey history. I mean, I'm just going to go there. Keith was with the St. Louis Blues when the franchise was born. He was a disciple of Emile Francis, learned all about developing youth structures, helped plant the seeds in St. Louis hockey that eventually culminated with 6 first-round draft choices a couple of seasons ago. Keith also went on to USA Hockey and guided several of our national teams, helped give really birth to sled hockey, not only in America, but around the world. He would literally travel around the world and talk about development of sled hockey. So Keith is quite a credentialed individual, and I learned a lot from him at RHI. He was one of my early mentors. And Mike Schroeder was a terrific marketing gentleman, terrific talent who really, I'd say the Vipers probably had the most comprehensive local licensing program in the league. They were very successful in selling merch throughout the town. They had a great relationship with the Blues, but I'll forever be mad at these guys. Forever. I'm going to hold a grudge against them because they brought this incredible logo set and uniform designs to the league, and I had absolutely nothing to do with it. I was so mad at them because we're perfect, right? I mean, look at those logos. They're perfect.
Yeah. These are interesting too, because this is one of the few teams I'm finding in RHI that has 2 different, essentially primary logos, right? This is the black version, right? And then on their white, it's got the obviously like the word mark in there too, and the Viper on wheels, which is pretty sweet too. But that's not very common. Most are, you wear your Voodoo, it's the same logo on the white and the black. Maybe some of the font colors change, but these ones have 2 different primary logos, and they are both gorgeous.
Well, Joe, branding sophistication in sports was really starting to escalate in the early 90s, mid 90s. And the Vipers understood before almost any league in any sport how to establish that primary identity, and then how to do a peel away with that V. And creating 2 distinct looks, home and away, really was cost efficient too, because they didn't have to go to that 3rd jersey, which was just being introduced at the time too. So they were ahead of the curve on so many levels. I mean, they oozed innovation out of the Vipers office.
Yeah. I mean, any of these logos would stand up to any other in today's world too. I mean, they're just so good. So
Well, the Detroit Vipers of the IHL ripped that logo off pretty hard.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Let's be honest. I mean, let's be honest.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Bill Adam would be in my top 5. I mean, this is right there, in the pantheon of RHI crests.
Well, I think
Podium.
yeah, without a doubt, because I mean they created a jersey that they could use their other logo as their secondary, and I think it was very hard for me to say which one was better, because I don't really. I'm a purist. I like the logo to speak for itself. But I mean, in this particular case, in lots of discussions I've had with people all over the place, you really had to get it to say something so everybody understand what it was at the beginning. And then I would have think it'd be great to morph. But I mean, they started the morph in '93, and when they came to '94 and they created the 2 separate sets. I mean, it was different, but that's what roller hockey gave everybody the platform for. I mean, you had an awesome St. Louis Vipers across the front, and then on the shoulder of the home jerseys was that V. So, I mean, it gave it that awesome secondary logo, and then you took that secondary logo and you put it on the black jersey, the away jersey at the time, and then I mean, it was just fantastic. The way they did their piping, their striping, and everything, that yellow or gold kind of color that they had with the uniform, it made everything pop. And I think they were traditional yet innovative, and just a fantastic uniform.
So there are 2 reasons why I think the Vipers are so prominently successful in the history of the league. One, St. Louis is a traditional powerhouse in roller hockey history. It's one of the anchor cornerstone markets in roller inline hockey history, period. Remains so to this day. But the Vipers were also throwing their weight around a little bit in the middle of Brett Hull, Al McGinnis, Chris Pronger, the Blues history, that chapter in Blues history. And they paid no respect to the Blues at all. They went with black and red, which was almost sacrilege. You didn't do red unless you were related to the Cardinals. So Vipers used red as an antithesis to the Blues. So they were throwing their venom down. It was really a message, and it resonated with that roller hockey vibe. We are not ice hockey. We are our own people. And that's what the Vipers did in St. Louis, and they were embraced.
Well, a few years later, look at what the Blues did to their jerseys, though.
There you go.
They added red. They added red to. They went away from just that blue and gold and added some red trim in there. And
Well,
so
Vince, your example is spot on, but can we never talk about that jersey in the history of our podcast again, please?
St. Louis jerseys. I want to talk about the never worn trumpets.
No! No! No!
The only good thing Mike Keenan did for the city of St. Louis was not let your players wear those jerseys.
Back to the Vipers. I'm getting sick. Yeah, no, Vipers were a tremendous organization, and their jerseys and their crest really reflected, what their brand ethos was and how well thought out that entire organization was.
Yeah. Also, I think they were one of the first teams to, bring some true roller hockey guys on board as well, because for the years 93 to 95, it was mostly ice hockey coaches and ice hockey players, and it was all minor league guys. And, to see them embrace guys that, yes, they did play ice hockey during the winter at the time, but guys that were, growing up playing the game of roller hockey were CJ and Jamie Yoder. So to see them get on board in 96 and 97, eventually win the cup in 99, was fantastic to see. And people still regard CJ now, well into his 40s, is still playing, and people still call him the greatest roller hockey player of all time. He's played at almost every level. And
I would say CJ was part of the second wave. Okay. Oh yeah, St. Louis player, because you had guys like Scotty Rupp, Dan Papillo, Trevor Downey, Jeff Carrico. Those guys were the role players. Kevin Plager later was part of that second wave, related to NHL alum, his father. But you are so spot on that St. Louis recognized that we had that talent from the roller hockey world, who were then making that transition to inline that could hang with the rest of the league. I mean, Rick Wilson, really good example, maybe not from St. Louis, but a former Blue, making that transition to inline. So
yeah, and they brought in guys like Team USA players like Eric Weichelbaumer in 97. And, so they definitely brought in a lot of good roller hockey guys over the years. And then, obviously in 99. But yeah, definitely the transformation over to Plager, Langlois, and Christian Scarina. I mean, there was probably one of the top scorers in RHI history. So, easily bringing those guys in, it transformed. And they were one of the few teams that were able to keep their good core of guys together year after year. And to be able to see them do that and then eventually, get a cup finally was cool to see for those guys.
yeah, in the second season and on, I think they focused on where they needed to focus. They brought in some hockey talent, above and beyond what the inline player could bring. It's a local guy. But the fact is that they laid that cornerstone, and they sent a message to the roller hockey community in St. Louis that, this is achievable for you. Oh, look at that. They made it tangible and achievable. And I think they laid that foundation for CJ and other guys that followed right behind him in the second wave.
How does St. Louis end up with this custom crafted brand of jerseys?
They
Yeah, that was much later after me.
Yeah, 97, everyone could go pretty much with who they wanted. Guys.
Yeah. Yeah, the free-for-all, I couldn't do the free-for-all.
Supplier pool.
Yeah, Adam, let's see that thing. Hold that up. I want to see the numbers on.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I think that was the other thing that was really cool about this particular uniform is they went away from the traditional number, and they eventually went with the how would you call it, like the snake number.
Make font. Yeah. So just so rad, really, like so out there with that font, with the yellow nameplate, with the red and like italics, like it's moving. Yeah.
Yep.
Just
And they put
beautiful.
the V on the shoulder patch, and then they obviously have the sleeve numbers were I don't know if I can get that really on there right way, but yeah, the numbers, and then to see a company like Custom Crafted move stuff like this onto other teams. So if you go to the ECHL just a couple of years later, the Columbus Cottonmouths down in Georgia ended up with this style of number and everything, and again, started with RHI, started with St. Louis, and then other teams started coming up with it. But yeah, pretty cool. The custom crafted program that they had in those years also featured a fight strap, which is something that RHI jerseys did not have. So these particular jerseys were one of two in RHI, because Bauer's Pro program in '97 worked with the Sacramento River Rats, and the Sacramento River Rats and St. Louis Vipers were the only two teams in RHI that had the fight strap in '97. And yeah, pretty wild. Pretty, again, cool stories.
Yeah. Yeah, we love that. And that's actually something we're working on here too now. For the first time ever, we're able to do customs on the sublimation on our products. So we are going to oof,
Oh, wow.
the snake font.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're gonna this is a prototype. We are gonna get the yellow nameplate with the red font going italics across there, but the snake font, we had our art team recreate, hand draw every one of these numbers. And so now when you go to bench clears and you buy your Vipers tank, you can put your name and number, you can put whatever you want on it. And you're gonna get some snake font. So we're pumped for that. There's a handful of teams that are like that, right? The Jaws have the bite marks at it. The blades have like really wide, almost like the old Colorado Avalanche, like just like fat and wide numbers. There's maybe like 8 of them that have kind of some special stuff. But nothing beats the snake font. It's just like so good. I mean, might have made the rest job a little harder. It's not the easiest thing to read, but just kind of funny, yeah. But so cool. What innovators, really.
Yeah.
And again, to just have like 2 different designs for like completely different like logos, but they're both kind of primary logos, and they just switch on the back or on the shoulder on the jersey, right? Like I love that one. You
Wait,
have
love the teams that put wheels on. I mean, when you put those full wheels on, it gave it more of an identity. I love that.
yeah, yeah. Well, Steve shared a lot of good stories privately about just kind of how the logos came to be. If it had to have a hockey, a roller hockey, speed puck or wheels or something that said we're roller hockey. Steve, you want to tell the audience about that? Because I think I'm the only one that heard it.
No, it was a mandate from the league, and it said, "Look, we are trying to establish a new identity and a new brand, and if you're going to be part of the league, your crest has to have X, Y, and Z." And some of those elements were exactly like Adam has, was the speed puck, which was so important to the launch and success of our game. It had to have some element of wheels to reflect inline hockey. Or it had to have an element of the RHI crest, which nobody really jumped in, sort of like MLS does today with their primary crest with their home clubs. So we did a few things to kind of push the brand and push the identity envelope a little bit, that I think other leagues eventually picked up on. But yeah, that's why we were, Joe, when your art team was redesigning the logos, by hand, we had to take the opportunity to tweak a couple of those logos because maybe they didn't quite meet specifications, but I think it was ultimately a very smart thing that we did at the league office, and I think the fact that we're still talking about it today means that it stood the test of time. We'll talk about a couple of the logos that didn't meet that criteria, but they got special exemptions, and I'm reminded of one of them right there. Well, the sec yeah, then the secondary guy was in the V. So
Right. Yeah. 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 He was on.
preliminary logo has the V.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got the hockey stick there. Yeah.
But
Yeah. This.
you're sitting on the Roadrunners, not behind you, and then Vince, you've got Roadrunners behind you.
I got a double Roadrunners here.
Yeah, there was no chance in hell we were changing that.
Let's show you a little
Like that. Secondary. Uh, that's perfection, guys. I mean, that's sport. And the Roadrunner, of course, named after Yvan Cornway, who was one of the owners and the coach. You just, come on, that's perfection. Ernst Hutchinson. But their secondary, there you go, Adam. It's trying to get a passing grade to represent the puck. Well, so we kind of gave them a pass.
It's got a little bit of depth to it, causing it could be the puck. We let it go. We let it go. So
I will tell you that mandate did not sit well with some logos. Which,
It didn't.
you know, also make a slash at the, of a weird lightning, whatever it's supposed to be, a lightning bolt with a dragon just sitting on wheels, or the Phoenix Cobra. The Phoenix Cobras with a, it looks like a little Tyson with some.
Well, Vince, now we're talking about a whole nother level of depth of story that's not for this podcast. But
well, it's not here, then where? Yeah.
yeah, no, we'll touch on those stories when we talk about the Cobras and the Flash. Okay, I promise you. But two things I want to touch on with the Vipers before we wrap up St. Louis. Chris Rogels was another one of the local hockey legends who ended up playing with the Vipers for a good, I think, 4 or 5 seasons. Really productive player. But there's also a guy named Alain Waugh, who was the Vipers goalie. And Al came from the Vipers from the Canadian national junior team. He played World Juniors, where he was a headline goalie. And he ended up playing for us and staying in St. Louis. He married a local, if I remember, and is now a player agent, representing a great portfolio of NHL players. And it all started right here with his career in the Vipers. Kind of cool stuff.
Yeah. Storied franchise. Love it.
Indeed. But if it doesn't start correctly with the right credentialed people I mean, really, they were the example that many other franchises didn't follow, and the results were what they were, right? So kudos to the Vipers for having that vision and the foresight, and that's why we're still talking about them today.
Out of that brings up an interesting question. Out of the 40 some odd teams, right, organizations that have come and gone, how many cornerstone teams, I guess, how many were there from start to finish, or for at least, 4 of the 6 years? Like, how many solid organizations were there versus there was maybe a few that you're like, they lasted a year and weren't run exactly up to your standard?
That's a great question, and I don't know the number, but I'll bet Adam and Vince have a better idea what that number is. But I want to tell the kind of the backstory behind that question and why the answer is so poor, okay? So recall there was the World Roller Hockey League down in Florida that had an ESPN2 contract. And that was in 93, 94, 93, 92, 93, we were aware of them. And, there was a lot of kids were watching the World Roller Hockey League. And here we were as a brand new league. Dennis Murphy and the founders really, really believed that we were behind the 8 ball at that point. Strategically, ESPN was behind World Roller Hockey League. They had every advantage in the market. What we didn't know, though, was that David McLean had no intention of expanding the league to individual markets. He wanted to run a tournament-style, single location, single venue kind of TV event, kind of like his wrestling background. We just didn't know that. So from our perspective, we had to grow from 12 to 24 teams like that to protect markets. And unfortunately, you experience some fragility when you make decisions based on haste. And some of those markets ended up biting us in the long term. And that's why when we talk about a league that was around for 7 or 8, 9 years, we had 40 plus franchises because there was just turnover. And it was unfortunate, but it was a byproduct of where we were and what we believed our strategic strengths and weaknesses were. So what teams were around for the longest? You can definitely point to an Anaheim. You can point to a Vancouver for having some tenure. You can point to St. Louis.
LA, San Jose.
Thank you. Yeah. What else? Adam, Vince, you got my back here?
Yeah, well, I mean, Oakland was another one that lasted 93 to 96. New Jersey was 94 to 97. So I mean, there was a few. I mean, Buffalo obviously from '94, and then they switched over to Empire in '96, and then back to Buffalo in '97. So I mean, upstate New York. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of one and dones or two and dones, but those are all your teams that have lasted 4 to, I mean, obviously Anaheim and St. Louis were the only ones to go every single season. 93 to 97, take the break and then come back in 99. So yeah, so I mean it's Anaheim definitely had some of the one of the bigger staffs. Vancouver, when they were operating, had a very big staff. So I mean, some of these organizations looked at it as this is the NHL of roller hockey, and they had to have lots of people on staff, and kind of compared it to an NHL team where some of the teams did take a minor league aspect to it. You have a business guy, you have a coach, you have a couple office people or whatever. And then some teams operated with almost nobody. So hence why they fell under. If you don't have people there selling your sponsorships and selling your tickets and doing your marketings, promotions, PR and all that stuff. If you don't have a radio contract, if you didn't have TV, if you didn't jump on board with any local promotion, or even try and get on board with ESPN, if the league wasn't helping you out with one of those games of the week or whatever, it was difficult. And then you had the ownership groups that saw it as, I own something and this is my boy. And they just kind of threw around whatever they wanted to throw around, and then just go, hey, wow, I lost 500 grand. Let's not do this ever again. Guys lost more than that, obviously. Some guys did use it as a write-off. Some guys were owners of NBA teams or NHL teams, or, some guys were involved with NFL teams. And, some of these families were using this as something. I mean, if you look at Dr. Jerry Buss, I mean, he buys everything in LA, and he has his daughter run the LA Blades, and she got a massive education. And Jeannie did so well with the LA Blades. And then when Jerry passed away, I mean, she's an amazing executive that's now running everything out there for the Lakers and everything. So it's unbelievable how this was a springboard for a lot of great people. And was a great option for a lot of great people, but some people just had it as like I said, they had it as a toy or, a write-off, and, didn't care as much. And I think that's what put a lot of those one and dones or one or 2 year wonders around it. Kind of stinks, but, I wish I was older and was able to work for some of them, because probably would have helped them stick around maybe longer, but they needed more passionate people.
It goes back to what I said about the league office. We did not do the job that I wish we could have done with due diligence, because from one year to the next, 93 to 94, we had to expand and double the size of the league. And, there just isn't the time to do that appropriately and with the respect that the process deserves. And sometimes we got lucky, and other times we didn't. So sad.
Theoretical question for you now then. Do you think if you didn't double in teams that year, RHI would still be around?
Yes, we would actually be stronger. And had the process been slowly revealed with us growing intentionally rather than frenetically, I think World Roller Hockey League may have quietly folded with ESPN coming to us rather than us having to force a merger. I think the process could have been earned rather than out of panic. And I think we would have had more ability to manage the league day to day, rather than some of the stories that we're even telling in this episode, where teams took it upon themselves to do certain things. And like Vancouver just doing a jersey. Well, that may not sound like a big deal, but that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And not only does it create differentiation in the presentation of what's happening on the court or on the floor, it sends a message to the other owners that they can be Jerry Jones, or they can do whatever they want, because no one's going to slap my hand. Well, had we grown more intentionally and more purposefully, we would have had a greater control, which would have given us an opportunity to have better sponsorship relationships, like when Pepsi and Taco Bell came in. The reason that didn't work out is because there were so many examples of teams doing their own things. It was the tail wagging the dog for too many years, and eventually, Taco Bell, Pepsi, ESPN just walked away and said, you know what, guys, you have an amazing product. We wanted to be behind you for the next 25 years, but you're shooting yourself in the foot and we can't support you anymore. And that was the right answer.
Yeah.
But, so had we grown, Joe, to your question, if we grown, had more purposefully, we would have been able to manage the process. We would have had better quality owners who were in it for the right reasons. The game would have grown organically. It would have grown to fortify the league instead of just create these fractures. And I bet we'd still be around today. Because I think the NHL would have bought RHI. Yeah. Guys, don't forget, we were in negotiations with the NHL for the league to purchase RHI. That almost happened. But, the NHL had the exact same reaction to Pepsi and ESPN and Taco Bell. They're like, look, guys, we want to buy you. You're an amazing product. You're perfect for us. But what are we buying? Damaged goods. And you've done it to yourself.
Yeah.
That's just the hard truth.
Yeah.
So as we were doing so many amazing things in RHI, we're not only in the episodes that we've already talked about, but the episodes that we'll talk about in the future, we changed the game of hockey. We changed the NHL. We changed the look of the NHL. We changed the look of inline hockey. We introduced a puck that became the standard around the globe. We gave birth to an industry. We did a lot of innovative things, from prize money to the rules on the game. I mean, in our short meteoric rise, we had quite an impact on sports and entertainment. We were the first league to have interviews of coaches. When you're watching the Stanley Cup this week, they're doing interviews in game in the Stanley Cup. We were the first league to do that. We were the first to mic players. We were the first to have cameras down low between the benches. Come on, guys. We were
In the locker rooms.
in the locker rooms, right? That's one, Adam. We had it go on. We just got in our own way too frequently. And maybe because we were running too fast, too hard. But when you're on an innovation streak like that, and you have so many positive reactions, and you realize all the benefits, it's hard not to get addicted to that serotonin buzz, that adrenaline rush, is really what we were riding on it.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful wave.
Well, we know that the NHL took about 90% of the things you just mentioned there. It's just interesting and they almost took you in general, RHI, along with them too. So it's kind of interesting that they just took all the good things you did, which makes sense, but then didn't try to start something themselves with their own infrastructure. And, if they wanted this would be, a training platform for their players too, the pro ice players. So they never had they never tried anything like that you know of?
Well, I think they got involved with the IIHF, or the IIHF World Championships in 95, I believe, maybe 96. They were held in Anaheim. The Ducks were one of the very few franchises that embraced inline hockey, and they had a great relationship with us at the Bullfrogs. So they threw their weight around the IIHF. They had a lot of great support. Gentleman in Ken Yaffe from the NHL was the NHL rep. I really think they wanted inline hockey to be a primary driver. But I don't know if all of the ingredients were ever in place between the Players Association, alignment with minor league owners who really maybe didn't want their players to play inline hockey as, a summer entity. They wanted their players to rest, relax, recover. This is a big conversation that, for as strategically attractive as a summer pro roller hockey league looks, and to be such an obvious answer, it's really a complicated set of ingredients to bring that to life.
Yeah.
So, notwithstanding, you had Ticketmaster and Live Nation at the time who were trying to gobble up building dates that we wanted to be in the summer. You had concert tours and other entertainment options that needed those dates. Again, this is a large conversation about the complexity of sports and entertainment, trends, players associations, labor contracts, sponsorships, television.
We could dive into a rabbit hole.
It's a rabbit hole. And maybe someday we'll do that conversation, but I've given you a good intro into why it didn't happen and why it may never happen again. It's going to take the perfect set of circumstances, just like we had in 92, to ever make this happen again.
Pretty amazing. Pretty wild story. That's what we're here for, to hear all that, because a lot of people don't know these stories. So here's your platform.
Man, I can't believe you guys just got that out of me.
That's what we're here for. Fine.
Yeah, that was fun.
So yeah, you mentioned some of like the cornerstone teams. I only heard one East Coast team there, the New Jersey Rock and Rollers. Were there any other? I mean, I know New York City didn't really have a team, right? You had Empire State, which is upstate. It's kind of where I went to college. I know you had two Buffalo teams. Was that at the same time, or was that one converting? You had the Wings and the Stampede, right? And I guess Empire State too. Where did the Empire State Cobras play?
So the Stampede actually started at the old auditorium in Buffalo, or the Aud, and they were there in 94, 95. They actually won the championship in 94. Great group of guys there. Mark Major, John Vecchiarelli, Chris McSorley was coaching. Nick Vitucci was their goaltender. I mean, just a fantastic squad of guys. But either way, they had some. There you go. They had some in 95 with fun day.
Oh, hold on a second, Adam, because Joe, I mean, we can go off. You can edit this or not, but I really think we could do something really cool with this podcast, guys. Just right now, Adam, you're mentioning Vitucci, Vecchiarelli, even McSorley. Why don't we do a Bench Clearers Roller Hockey Hall of Fame?
Oh, I like it. Yeah.
Well, or the RHA Hall of Fame brought to you by Bench Clearers, and we're going to have Vecchiarelli and Vitucci on. And why don't we just make it their nomination and acceptance into the Hockey Hall of Fame right then and there during that episode?
Love it. And I've got my logos and colors and all that stuff. If you guys want to tweak all that, that was my goal when I started in 98, to kind of call my collection the Hall of Fame. So
There we go.
Well, listen, Adam, you're in as builders. How's that?
Yeah. We need the intro, like going through the tunnel of your guys' garage, just like through all the jerseys.
Joe, I'm actually serious about this.
Hey, I'm behind you.
That could put the cornerstone down on your brand as the authentic brand of RHI history.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to meet these guys. Yeah, I'm gonna need you to tell me who was who. Yeah. All right. Listen, we'll customize all these right now that we have the customs. But
all right, the three of us are the first nomination committee.
All right, that's it.
You guys did what I mean. That's serious.
100%.
Totally.
So where do you start? You all start just like a player's names of just everyone that played, and then everyone gets their vote?
Yeah, I would probably come up with a good nomination list. I mean, guys that I wouldn't say like stood the test of time, but I mean, guys that performed in this league at this level and had I don't know if you can call it a career. I mean, there's very few guys that played every single year, but I mean, there were guys that were consistent performers, goaltenders that were sharp. You had defensemen that were just unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, you also had coaches that helped innovate things. You had, people that were involved in these organizations. So, I mean, there's a lot of great people overall from players to coaches to management, that have done so many great things. I think we should come up with a nomination list. And, I mean, I have my list, and I've had all my things here with my Hall of Fame, and I have a jersey that I had made, and most of the guys, when I ran around and met them over the years, I have all their signatures on a shirt. So, I mean, if you give me a moment, I could probably go find it and show it to you.
Yeah, that's amazing.
All right, hold on a second.
Guys, and I will take the responsibility of writing a creative brief around this. I'll share it with you. We can tweak it, and then we can ratify it, and then use this podcast as a platform to induct and to announce and to induct.
No, I'm 100% for that. At some point, we can dream that this league at some point might come back, but this podcast reaches the right ears and the right people. You never know. I don't know how many people out there realize that a lot of us want this game to come back. And this might be, that stepping stone that, Steve and Adam and a lot of us have talked about, that you need that one person to say, hey, let's do this again.
We can't talk about this now because we're recording.
It turns out, boop.
No, that's okay. We keep rolling. But Vince, I will call you, and we will have a separate conversation. Okay.
Sounds good.
Adam, you don't get the call. Sorry.
Oh yeah, you important here. This go back to this.
Soldiers, insult scissor. Adam and I talked last night, so you are on my list here. You're on my list. So it's the opportunity.
All right. Well, and hopefully I get last call. Yeah.
I've already brought you in as licensee. You're already in.
No, but I want to piggyback. Adam, we were talking about these East Coast teams. A lot of these states and cities had teams. They just were the same team. I mean, you take Florida, for example. I mean, you had Tampa, you had the Hammerheads, the Orlando Jackals. So, I mean, you had teams that just kind of almost recycled cities within a state, but never got that foothold. I think Tampa would have survived. I think Tampa would have been a great city. Especially with, and now you look at that now with Lightning, how big that city is. I mean, obviously the hockey took a while to take off there, but the Lightning have always been successful.
Well, they had a great ownership with the NHL club right now. That's the reason. Not to mention the success of the team, but I think it's more complex. But it also comes down to logistics and also sociology. Okay, not to get too deep down the rabbit hole here, but logistically, yeah, right, Adam. Logistically, RHI's league office was in Los Alamitos, California. Our distributed office was in Grass Valley, California, and then our commissioner's office was in Denver, Colorado. Everything west of the Rocky Mountains. Okay. Now, while New York may have been a traditional roller hockey market, and some of the East Coast, you had that sprinkle. This is where we get into sociology a little bit. The East Coast did not really catch that roller hockey vibe that the rest of the country caught. I mean, there was a diffusion from west to east. Even St. Louis was sort of in that gray area of that California vibe with that East Coast, mentality. East Coast was just a different culture. And while they loved the game, they did not approach it and they did not promote it with the same sort of style and personality that happened on the West Coast.
I agree. I don't think, this is me growing up on the East Coast. Being a hockey person, of course, I fell in love with the game. We talked last time, just seeing it randomly on ESPN, but roller hockey did not take off big on the East Coast until closer probably to the end of RHI. 97, 98, 99 is when that wave kind of, made it to the East Coast. But yeah, a lot of us were playing in the streets as friends, but it wasn't, we didn't have rinks yet. My first organized roller hockey was a concrete floor of a basketball court inside of a church. That was the introduction to organized roller hockey on the East Coast. And this was my junior year of high school, which is 1996. So,
well, Vince, in contrast, on the West Coast, parks and recreation departments were already sprouting rinks in places of tennis courts. Not on tennis courts, but tearing tennis courts out, tearing baseball diamonds out, tearing out handball court, and they were dropping in outdoor roller hockey rinks. So that was already happening on the West Coast while you didn't have a venue.
Yeah, we were literally playing in parking lots or getting kicked off tennis courts, things like that. So yeah, I could definitely see why the game survived longer on the West Coast than it did on the East Coast.
Yeah, I think that's all true. And then the separation, the time zones, it really made a difference in our ability to manage and to support teams on the East Coast. We tried our best to stagger, times in the office and things like that. And we would work with our East Coast teams to call meetings at a mutually convenient, but those things were just logistics, of 3 hours time difference. And it hurt us in many ways. If we were to do it today, then we would need to have 2 offices, one in the Central or the East Coast time zone and one in either the Mountain or the West Coast. So professional leagues can operate because they have the strength of staff. They have 300 people in the NHL league office. You can do that. But don't forget, they also have a distributed network of offices in different time zones, too, for different reasons. And so they tackle it because they have the resources. We didn't have the resources.
That's interesting. And, the name of the league was Roller Hockey International, right? This is for another episode, a longer chat, but I know you had aspirations to expand this out of just North America. So I'd like to see how what the plan behind that would have looked like. Because now if you're dealing with Europe, and I think you even mentioned Asia at one point, now you got a lot of time zones. Now, yeah,
Well,
dinners or breakfasts.
our first foot forward was in Japan. Don't forget, we had the RHI tour of Japan in Tokyo during the Live UFO Festival, sports festival. And I was fortunate enough to be the assistant GM of the entire tour, overseeing both Team USA and Canada. And I was in charge of the event production at Yoyogi Park, where we actually built a rink over the Olympic swimming pool that was used at the Tokyo Olympics.
Wow.
So that was an impressive feat of engineering. We had, I'd say we had 10,000 people at that game. We were very well attended, a lot of curiosity.
Yeah.
But it was a byproduct of our partner. Our partner in the Japan expansion was a gentleman named Gunji Odaka. And Odaka-san was, if you've ever heard of Dentsu, do a quick Google search while you're watching this. Dentsu is the world's largest advertising agency. It's a freaking powerhouse. And it was a powerhouse before the merger and acquisition frenzy of advertising agencies in the late 90s, early 2000s. Odaka-san was the man. He was the man. You can drive through Tokyo and everybody would know that that was Odaka-san driving down the street. And so we had the power of Dentsu behind our game, and we had the power of Dentsu behind the Roller Hockey International expansion into Japan. So what should have happened was that RHI would look a lot like the Japanese and the Korean Major League Baseball leagues, where we would have been corporate-owned teams representing, brand extensions of those corporations. We would have had a full club culture promoting and developing the game of hockey from the grassroots all the way to the professional game, which looks a lot like the European model. And Odaka-san was going to spearhead the entire thing and bankroll most of it too. And we had an incredible introduction. And again, it was just one of those opportunities. And Odaka-san saw it on the wall before ESPN, before Pepsi, before Taco Bell, and before all of our major partners that, man, this is a good idea. And wow, my people love this, but nope, not going to.
Wow. Did you get introduced to this Odaka-san?
We had a relationship broker, if I remember correctly, in Southern California and Long Beach, and I believe, and I'm connecting these dots for the first time in real time here. I believe it was a byproduct of one of the RHI founders, Alex Belhumeur, serving as a commissioner on the Port of Long Beach. So through international trade, through those international relationships, there was a connection made with Odaka-san, and there it was. And we developed the tour. We developed the whole branch of international expansion. And wow, we were growing fast, Things were at lightning speed on a daily basis.
No shortage of excitement. Yeah, I've seen the footage from that, or I assuming it was that game, USA versus Canada, but I had no idea that was in Tokyo. So that is pretty well on top of the Olympic swimming pool. So that's pretty wild.
Yeah, Yoyogi Park was part of the Olympic presentation in Tokyo for the Tokyo Games, and when they pitched, building a rink over the pool, we're like, are you kidding? That's not going to wait. Japanese engineers are extremely persistent and innovative, and they made it work. And it was beautiful. Yeah.
Was it like a sport court? What was the base like? Just wood and then sport court. Yeah.
Yeah, it was plywood underneath, and there was like a triple base underneath it. Decking, plywood, and then of rink decking, and then sport court.
Well,
It was a great surface,
Wow.
fast surface too. And if I remember, the sport court ship from Dan Kotler's facility arrived like in the nick of time. There was something going on with customs that prevented that floor from getting to the arena like 2 weeks ahead of time. And if I remember, the floor was put down hours before our first practice. They were still striping it, if I remember correctly, when we got there. But it was fun.
that's fun. Awesome.
I have the VHS master tapes. They're in beta, but I have the master tapes somewhere in my attic. But you guys
We're gonna need,
subscribe and let me know.
yeah, we're gonna need to get those remastered digitally.
I
You got to dig
think
those
I
up.
have the master tapes from the LA Forum game in '92 as well.
Yeah, that footage grew up on YouTube.
Well, one of them's on what is it, Vimeo, or one of those. I know a couple people put them up there, but yeah, and I can't remember if there's the LA game or the Vegas game. But yeah, the original tour.
Well, I have the master tapes that came straight from the production truck on both of those games.
Cool. That is super cool.
All right, maybe I should do something with that. You know who's been really great about putting games up on YouTube is Jeff Booma. You guys know Jeff?
Very well. I know of Jeff. There's another guy on the pro roller. Is it Ahmad? Amanet? I'm getting his name right. A lot of footage just pops up from him. In fact, I sat on my couch the other day and watched the Roadrunners Tampa Bay game in French because it was the Montreal. Yeah, it was based off of Montreal. I didn't care. It was awesome. I don't know what they're saying, but
Yeah.
it was cool to see that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, so no, Jeff is probably a, kind of a Southern Cal legend in the inline game. And, without telling the story in too much detail, Jeff is actually the person responsible for me connecting with Dennis Murphy at RHI. He was the start of my roller hockey career and my hockey career. So
and he still plays in the old man levels in some of these tournaments, and he breaks out his gear from like the 60s and the 70s, and he still plays in some of the inline events. And I can't remember how old Jeff is. I think he's just reaching in his 60s, and he still goes out there and he plays, and he puts on the old pad once in a while, and it's great to see. He's a hoot.
he's still sporting the Coopers, isn't he?
Oh, he's sporting all the old school stuff.
Yeah.
Well, before RHI, Jeff was a WHA addict. He just loved the WHA, but again, part of Dennis Murphy's past.
Oh, you know Murph for a long time.
Yeah. So his teams are probably still named Blazers. That was our team back in the early '90s, but he's still Blazers. Oh, Cowboys.
Yep, the OC Cowboys, the Orange County Cowboys. Yep, he still uses all the old. Yep.
Jeff, no, of all things, Jeff is not creative in that regard, but no. But it still works. Yeah, it still does work. And but really, Jeff, we have the four of us have a lot to appreciate from Jeff, either in putting up those games on YouTube. So that's been a tremendous resource for all of us who love the game.
Well, let's get him on in here and let's have a fun chat with Jeff.
Might have to.
Awesome. All right, guys. I think that's all the time we got here. I gotta opt for a little bit.
we did good.
We do and hit a bunch of others, but that's what we want. Yeah, the depth. So
You know what though, guys? Today was a good episode though. A lot of good stories.
you got a whole lot of good stuff out of there. Yeah, just got to figure out how to edit it.
Today, man. Bravo.
I like, yeah, you were digging up some stories you never told, and yeah, you have to kind of piece them together in real time, like you were saying. It's
Good luck to your
awesome.
Is Vince still here?
What?
Yeah,
Come on.
Oh, appreciate you guys taking the time. Yeah, we should just kind of keep these going. I mean, they're fun. You got such awesome stories, and just kind of whenever it works in for your timeline. Let's just, I mean, if we could do one a week or something, that'd be awesome. We'll cover all the teams eventually. It'll take a couple of years, but we'll get there.